Hey everybody.
Hello.
Hello, Dylan, and people watching this show along with Dylan. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing all right, Zach. How are you?
You know, I'm doing very well, thanks. I'm doing very well. I sent a lot more emails out to some streaming services, so I expect to get ignored more. So I'm trying to ride high now and, not be upset later.
Well, I learned earlier this week that Quibi got bought by Roku, so Quibi might still be in the game.
Okay, great.
We might still have that as an outlet.
Well, I do have 3 Rokus in my house, so hopefully that is like some kind of stock or something.
Does that mean you have 3 Quibi accounts? Is that going to help?
I have 0 Quibi accounts. I'm not into short. I'm not into short format stuff.
You're the only people who respond to my messages, Zach.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. How's your week? How's your week been?
You know, more of the same.
Yeah, more the same.
Yeah.
It's almost done being the same, huh?
I know, right? Yeah.
That's cool. So if you remember last week, we had Jeff Dwoskin on our show, and
we did.
We made a very weird. That was a very weird concept about a gun. It started out as like a gun being followed down, then it kind of turned into like a bullying revenge plot, and then maybe a splash of bank robbery. Either way, we are some nobodies. This is Talking Upstream. Talking Upstream is a show in which me and my partner Dylan, what we do is we get together and we try to create ideas. We want to sell scripts. We want to be content creators, story makers, that kind of thing. And we thought the best way to do that would be to talk ourselves up to a streaming service. So if anybody's watching this show and you happen to run a streaming service and you do want weird original content, we're here. This is us. We're
gonna
for
get
sale.
that right one of these days.
Yeah, and we're going to show you our weird process over the next 90-ish minutes. But it's not just us. Like last week we had Mr. Jeff Dwoskin. This week we have somebody super special. It's actually a show that I do love. So Dylan, would you mind introducing our guest?
Of course. So this week we are joined by Andy Grant from the Real Men Feel podcast. Andy, how are you doing today?
Very good. Nice to see you, gentlemen.
Good to see you too.
Right on, Andy Grant. So, Real Men Feel, which is funny because the way we met was feeling some pretty severe burns. For everybody listening out there, we met Andy on the Indie Pod Summit, and we had to do a weird segment where we were supposed to eat hot peppers. Andy was a superstar champ, brought a couple of the actual peppers we were supposed to eat. I messed up trying to cook my own, and then I'm getting like a sauce or whatever. But Andy Grant, how are you, sir?
I'm very good, and I've recovered fully from that pepper experience. I hope you have too.
I have. Yeah, I feel less sweaty than that day, so I have recovered.
An achievement.
Dude, it was pretty bad. Real Men Feel. Great idea, great show. For those that for some reason don't know it, will you please describe your show? Describe, that's a stupid word. Describe, and let people know where they can find it.
Sure. Real Men Feel is all about encouraging men to own and express all of their emotions. We remind men that they are indeed human beings and that there are no emotions that are for men and some are for women. You know, real men can be authentic, genuine, vulnerable, and all of those are superpowers that enough guys don't take advantage of. Real Men Feel is available on every podcast platform known to man. I'm on more platforms than I know exists. You can watch us on YouTube and Facebook Watch as well.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, more platforms than you know. Has anybody ever come to you and say, hey, I listened to you on, and you name something like, hey, I listened to you guys on Deezer. And you're like, never heard of that platform.
I have someone that watches me on Jamaican public access TV, so thought I lived in Jamaica and asked me to get together and do stuff. And I was like, why do you think I live in Jamaica?
Now's the chance.
Dylan, we got to get on that Jamaican TV.
I know, right? Man, that would be the dream.
So, Andy, we started our show because, like I mentioned earlier, what we want to do is we want to talk ourselves up to a streaming service. What was the conception of Real Men Feel?
So I've been an energy coach since 2010. And energy meaning intuitive. I can read into people. There's a lot of like metaphysical, a lot of woo-woo stuff that's mostly women than men. And in every training program I've ever been in, I've been one of a very few guys in possibly a room of hundreds of women. About 6 years ago, I started getting this nudge to make something for men, to call them out. Like, there's shampoo and deodorant and soap that's just for men. And I needed to remind, emotions can be just for men. So that was the genesis. I was asked to give a presentation at an art gallery about masculinity. And I said, sure, I'll do that. And as it approached, I was like, what am I going to do about that thing I said yes to? So I was playing with my deck and, what does it mean to be a man? What's a real man? I struck on, what if real men feel? What if we saw a crying man and said, wow, what an awesome, tough, brave guy that is over there? So that's the genesis of the name. My favorite kind of episodes are I have a guest come on and he shares what he's been through, his own journey, and how he's now serving the world. And I'm up to, I think, 225 episodes so far.
Good stuff.
That is impressive.
It's a good cause.
Yeah, Dylan and I, we have a couple shows. One, we review podcasts, and we also try to get ourselves out there on podcasts just so people know our name. And we find that we're on a lot of the same podcasts, and we listen to a lot of we review a lot of the same podcasts. But when your show came across us, at least on my end, I don't want to speak for Dylan, but I found it so refreshing because I feel that I'm one of those men that likes to talk about their feelings. I do cry often. I have a 22-year-old daughter, and we are very emotionally connected, and I think that that's the right way to be. But I know that for me, that kind of started once I had my daughter. Once I realized that, oh man, all people feel and that kind of thing. Was there something that happened to you that made you realize that feelings, especially for men, were important?
Certainly, and that something is my life. I was a very emotional, sensitive kid. I got the impression that was wrong. I was an only child raised by a single mom. I felt like an outsider. Again, I felt wrong, and that manifested as depression and even suicide attempts when I was a teenager. So I know that silence kills men. So part of my mission is to speak about things that most men aren't, but all men can benefit from. And it's really to keep more guys alive, to let every person realize they aren't alone. No matter what they're going through, they're not alone. Someone else is going through it, has gone through it, will go through it. And the surest way to feel better is to share how you're feeling.
Yeah, that's perfect. One of the things that Dylan and I are, we write a lot of stories. We're trying to write movies. And one thing that is really important to us in our writing is inclusivity, because we want to make sure that we are doing all the right things for all the right people. Because what we've realized is the media really promotes toxic masculinity a lot. And you watch 80s movies, which I grew up on, and you got to be the Captain America, and you got to rub dirt in it and get back in there, and don't cry or else you're a couple words that refer to women parts. What would you say media does to, I guess, perpetuate this feeling?
It sells to the lowest common denominator, the easiest thing. We can all recognize the masks, the mythology. And it takes a more challenging piece of entertainment, screenwriting, story to break through that. So it's kind of like more the indie cinema, the fringe things are willing to talk about feelings and express themselves. But, that's changing too. My ideal guest is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, because there's no doubt he is a man, he is masculine, he is tough, and he feels. He is everywhere, showing all of his emotions. So I really look to him and Will Smith, or a lot of other guys, or more guys, but growing up, like my dad's generation was like John Wayne, and you just suck it up, and you're stoic, you're alone, you can do anything you need to do. If you need anybody, you're a loser, is all that sort of stuff. So it's still there, but it's less. At least from my perspective, I see it less. Maybe, hopefully, it's not just me.
Yeah. So would you say that jades some of how you view media? Like, do you have favorite directors because of how they write or how they create?
Wow, that's a good,
I guess to expand on that, is there any pieces of media recently that you think are good examples that showcase emotions from a healthy perspective from a masculine point of view?
one of my favorite network programmings is CBS Evil, and it's got people exploring things, and but you know the lead, all the leads, they get scared and they're trying to question things. So there's that. Boy, I can't even think of it on top of my head. I don't watch as much, but even I'll go. Let's go total pop culture. The Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, the Marvel heroes have doubts, have fears. They question themselves. It's the classic hero's journey. Really has men who feel, right. It's the again, it's that 80s stuff. It's the Rambos and the Schwarzenegger and all those movies that are just, they're so fake. There's such the inflated body and mask and walls behind somebody's heart, and that doesn't help anybody. It might make some bucks, but it doesn't help anybody.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that comes off is absolute passion from you, which is cool. And we talk to a lot of people, and they're comedians and whatever, and you have a passion that is just oozing off of you. Does that move into other forms of creativity? Do you write, or do you, I guess, journal? Or I know that you obviously go through, emotions through your podcast, but does that move into other forms of creativity?
Sure. I've won national awards for comedies. I used to work in television. I used to shoot news. I was a professional screenwriter. And then one day, actually, I was flying home from Hollywood. I had my first trip to Hollywood, and I got screenplays optioned. I was meeting with producers, pitching ideas, and they wanted to know more. It's like, oh my God, this is it. I've done it. Flying home, I just get this just super intuitive shouting that's like, stop making up stories and tell your own. And I haven't done fiction since. But I've had some screenplays optioned. It's really interesting. Just last week, I heard from a producer I hadn't heard from in a decade, asking to re-option a story of mine because he wants to target the streaming services. So I feel your pain and hopefully your pleasure.
Yeah. No, we definitely get some pleasure out of it.
We'll work on it. Now, you mentioned that you haven't done fiction in a while. Is the podcast kind of your main focus, or are you hoping to expand its trajectory? Is there like a kind of lead in that this podcast is serving as, or do you see this being your primary kind of project for a while?
It has been, I've written 6 books. They've all hit number 1 on different Amazon categories. And I know, 225 shows of Real Men Feel. There are tons of books in there. So it's just a matter of time fleshing that out. The past few months, I've had all sorts of guys telling me that I should be on TV and all these sort of things. And yeah, I'm open to that. If anyone has a TV channel they want to fill with programming, people told me that, I should be following Dr. Phil. And I don't follow Dr. Phil, but that sort of power. So it's neat that more guys are saying this and receiving the message. I don't know what the end game of when I started Real Men Feel, my goal was to do 3 shows before I quit, because my pattern had been try something, wasn't a home run, quit. I quickly loved it. I've lost track of how many of my closest friends I actually met as guests on podcasts. It's just, so I don't see it stopping. I have no idea where it's going to go, but yeah, I'd love to see Real Men Feel be kind of this global brand or meaning, or, live events. Whenever we can get live events happening again, I really see live weekends and collections of men coming together.
Yeah, that sounds great. I would be very happy at hanging one of those.
Yeah, it's a great project.
So we made this show because what we want to do is, like I said, we want to sell out and we want to make a movie. That is our ideal goal. If there is an ideal spot for Real Men Feel to head, would it be a network show? Would it be what would you say is like the most ideal form of Real Men Feel?
It's hard to imagine, as someone who grew up with only 3 channels on TV, the 3 real networks, it's hard to imagine Real Men Feel being there. I would love to see someone create like the male version of Oprah's network, and just full of, men's health, men's fitness, GQ, anything like that, like get behind and want to fill up material and have me kind of be the heart of that channel. Right. So yeah, I would love that. Totally open to that. That's the kind of thing I dream about. It's always been an affirmation of mine that I get paid for being me. And when you're just you, even professionally, there's no limit to what that can mean. So that's right. That's the kind of driver's seat I sit in, that there's no limit to what this can be.
Yeah, right on. Mm-hmm. IBM TV could definitely use someone like you. So we'll
Just
definitely
saying.
we'll send a couple emails and see if we can hook you up at least on
Send
this
you a
show.
referral link. They give us a $10 Applebee's coupon for every show we get started on here.
Yeah, just type in some nobodies at the end of it. So you said that The Rock would be probably your ultimate guest, like your number one guest. Who has been not your number one, but who's been the one guest that stands out first in your mind of like, that was such a great interview?
I interviewed Panache Desai, who's a spiritual teacher, taught books. He's been on Oprah's show, and I've worked with him like at a live event of his years ago. And anyway, I reached out to him. It was during the pandemic. I reached out to him. He had started doing these daily free meditations for everybody to feel better. And I was like, I wrote to his, team's email address, like, what would it take to have Panache be on Real Men Feel? And they said, me asking. I was like, wow. So within a week of my asking, he was on. So he was the biggest, celebrity known name. So that gave me some validity, and I enjoyed that. I most recently talked to Dr. Robert Glover. He is the author of No More Mr. Nice Guy, which is the book most men have mentioned to me in the past 2 years. Then, like, truly 150 guys have mentioned this book. And the title always turned me off. Like, I don't want to read a book judging me for being nice. I'm not interested in this alpha male, nonsense. I judged what the book might be. I read the book in December. I loved it. I was so happy to discover that my journey matched everything he recommended. So we talked just last week. The show hasn't been released quite yet, but that brought a lot of joy, a lot of meaning to me. I love when guys, especially authors that have been around, they're on television, they're on networks, and I ask a question, they're like, no one's ever asked that before. I feel like you probably have that too. Like, oh, that's like a podcast host win. It's not my goal. I'm really just asking what I think people want to know. It's in my own rule for creating entertainment has always been entertain myself, and if people come along, great.
Yeah, I completely understand what you mean about, especially when somebody's like, "Oh, this is such a great question." And speaking of which, I have a show where I get interviewed over and over again, just so I can understand how people work and what people want to have a conversation about. Sometimes I find interviewing people, it leads down a path of what I want to talk about. So having it flipped around is always cool. And one of the questions that was asked to me that I found just so cool, and it made me think about it for weeks after, was if your show is a sitcom or a series, what season are you in right now?
I feel like I'd say we're probably 4th year.
Now this
Still
is Andy,
to grow.
this is Andy Grant, not Real Men Feel.
Yeah.
Oh, me as a human being.
If your life was a show, and obviously you've gone through some stuff. So, what season are you in right now?
Wow, this is hard. The old part of me wants to say the final season, right? Let's end the show. And that's still like, and even though I'm so far healed and beyond that, that's still like there. That voice is there.
Yeah.
Let's see. How did Seinfeld ended like season 9 or 10? Simpsons is like 20 something. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm in season 6 and people are still glad it's going.
Right on.
Okay.
Do you think you're like in the middle of season 6, or are you about to hit like a really cool cliffhanger and about to venture into season 7?
I feel like season 6 is just getting started.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, I think when I broke mine down, I was in the very beginning of season 7. And I really actually sat down and was like, okay, well, I was 9 before I moved into here. That's when my parents divorced. So that was clearly that's a whole season. And then until 12, until high school, I'm like, that's obviously, high school is a season, so that's season 3. And I really just ruminated on that question for so long, and it really guided a lot of cool creative processes. So
it's a good question.
I thought so.
I think I also said 6.
You said 6. I think that you're wrong. I think you're in 4.
Whatever.
See, it makes me want to go, like, Lost was one of my favorite shows ever. So I want to go, like, all right, what was the year that you could tell they didn't know what they were doing? And then they got told when they would end and it picked up. All right.
Yeah, it's kind of 4.
Yep,
Yeah.
4. If Nikki and Paolo was on the show, that season is Lost.
Wasn't that season 2? I thought it was earlier.
They showed up in 2, and then 4 was when like the spider thing and then the diamonds.
They had the spotlight.
Oh, God, that was awful. Andy, we started podcasting because we failed to know how to make a movie, and then we kind of backtracked a little bit and was like, well, it's true. Like we set out to make a movie, and it's like, I don't know how to do this. Plus, then coronavirus, and it was like, let's
we set out to make a movie by writing a partial script.
Okay, honestly, if we could have made a movie, would we be podcasters right now? Probably not.
Maybe. I don't know.
Anyway, the point is that it was a failure that we really took the right way. Was there a failure that happened that made you start the podcast, or is there a failure that you would like to talk about in your life just to make sure that people are like, we all kind of like stumble, we all fail, but got to get back in there?
I have made movies. I have made award-winning short films. I was an executive producer on Anna Nicole Smith's final movie. Yet here I am podcasting, right? So I wouldn't call those fail. I don't believe in failures. Just experiences, more experiences. The ultimate. I hate the word. The ultimate experience that helped me was my failure to end my life. That launched me in new directions because I had to realize, like, all right, I'm not good at dying. I'm not good at living. There must be a better way to navigate all of this stuff, and that's what made me willing to be wrong. So embrace failure. I am now delighted to discover that I've been wrong about something I always thought was true, because it opens you up to more possibility, opens up to more adventure, more. Mm-hmm. When I would rather be right than happy, I was miserable. And now sometimes I could be right and happy. They can both exist. But if I find that anybody that insists on being right all the time, they are some of the most unhappy people I've ever met in my life, and that is not my goal.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I understand that sentiment completely. Yeah. If you weren't podcasting right now, what would you be doing?
I think I'd be guesting a lot. Like I guessed it like you guys too. Like I think this world will pull me in. I enjoy, and I didn't think I did. I actually dropped out of college to avoid a mandatory public speaking class. That's how afraid of speaking and being seen I was at a younger age. But yeah, I like storytelling. Maybe yeah. If I am, maybe I'd still be making shorts and just making fun and doing more just spontaneous videos and like making goofy, getting a gang together and making a goofy short. That's how I've always been.
Being a TikTok star.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all of our dreams.
They only need to be 60 seconds long.
That's true.
Very hard out, Quibi.
Yeah, it's just the cue of Quibi.
I'm not on TikTok.
I know. So you popped into podcasting because you got something to say and you got something pretty original, which I think is awesome. Did you have any podcasting influences? Did you listen to podcasts before you started your own?
No, I still don't. I've worked from home for way before pandemic time. I've been working from home full time since like 2011, 2012. So the traditional times to listen to podcasts, they aren't in my life. Mm-hmm. It's very rare that I listen to any podcast at all. My show started on Blab, which was a quickly defunct social media platform. And it was like a video chat room and people could come in and drop in, and that's how we did it. And then I realized, I can do something with this recording. Oh, I guess that's a podcast, right? And then the show lasted. So I had to actually become a true podcast and be on the proper platforms and all of that. But that's why we still do video. Like I've always just been more comfortable video and, people can watch and just listen or just listen, just watch, not listen. Whatever, however they want to do it.
Provide their own commentary.
Yeah. Oh, I've had people do that to my show.
It's not bad. All right. Zach, you got anything else?
No, I was about to say I talk a lot, so I was wondering if you have any questions. He is a writer, and you do have a couple writer questions.
That's true. When you were starting off, this is just kind of process questions. When you were starting off, did you find your footing primarily in contests, or did you make your own stuff and get noticed, or did you just reach out and have someone bite the hook?
So out of college, I got a job at a local cable company, and I worked in the marketing department, but also part-time in the public access department, teaching people how to make bad TV. Mm-hmm. I met a guy, and we clicked, and we decided to make our own show called Cool Stuff, which was wide open. Whatever we thought was cool, that was it. And this was, mid-90s. Anyway, so we were starting, and Wayne's World was all the rage. So all sorts of trade magazines picked us up because I was the crew and my friend Art was the host. It was just the two of us. So I was Garth and he was Wayne, and Garth running around with a camera. So we got picked up a lot. And then anyway, we went on. We did like 2 years worth of monthly shows, and it was just whatever we thought was neat. We were based in Connecticut at the time, and we won 2 ACE Awards for Best Local Comedy. I had interviews at where'd we go? Comedy Central, MTV. We went to New York City. We talked to people. I'm like, this is it. We are breaking through. This is amazing. It was at the time when MTV still just played music. They weren't sure if they didn't know what to do with us. We were like when David Letterman used to hit the streets and have adventures on this. That was cool stuff. We were just winging it, all improv. Talked to a lot of celebrities. We talked to Weird Al. We talked to Adam Sandler. And when they were just at the level that they were willing to talk to anybody too, and that's kind of what we were. So that went on, and that gave me the taste of entertainment and realizing I could craft stories, I could edit, I could shoot. I started writing screenplays. I got some professional training. I did well enough in contests. There were like this Trigger Street and other platforms where people would give you feedback, and other people would just like, "Well, this is really good," and I'd read them like, "This is not," and I could tell that, all right, I'm more elevated than the average person that just wants to write a screenplay. So I got training, got insight. Traveled with a group of writers to Hollywood in 2010. And again, people wanted my stories. The closest to fame any of my screenplays has gotten, Josh Whedon read one. Didn't buy it, didn't puke on it, just like, hey, this has promise. That's the feedback I got. And that's the furthest extent. That's the only name dropping. And Tyrese Gibson's production company optioned that very screenplay and became nothing. Yeah. But that's it. So and enough that all right, I've got some talent. I'm generating stories that Hollywood's interested in, and then I got nope, tell your own.
Right on. When it comes to just kind of generating, not even just fiction, but your own content, would you say that you're closer to do sprint where you do a lot of stuff really quick, or do you more like marathon where you do consistent kind of progress on everything as it comes to you?
Or
a third option?
Yeah, a lot of sprints. That's why I love the phone. My phone is full of script ideas. So sometimes it comes down faster than I can write. So I'm just speaking ideas. I have I've completed probably 7 screenplays. I have at least notes on another dozen, and more than notes, like the co-character, and here's the whole story arc, and all the plot points are there. And it's just time, and it's that. Sell one, give me the lure, get me back in there, and then know that that's the thing to do. Because I'm also in the Screen Actors Guild. I just have time for extra work. Kind of every movie that's been shot in Massachusetts, which is a lot of movies over the last 20 years, I'm in the background somewhere, just a blurry bit in the background. But I know where to look. and every now and then someone will go, "Hey, were you in that movie?" I'm like, "Yes, I was."
Yeah, good eye.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, right on.
Proudest moment. The point of your life that stands out, you're like, that's it.
I hope it's still in front of me.
Not yet. Right on.
Yeah. No, there's things I've been proud of, but wait, to take the peak of it. When I was in Hollywood and people wanted my screenplays, I thought that was it. So it keeps, it's like I'm climbing Everest. And each camp is like, hey, I'm proud I made it this far. Oh, wait, there's more, right?
That's so cool. That's right what you're talking about is like the life that Dylan and I are trying to get into, which is so cool. Because like even your past proudest moment is our future almost proudest moment, which is great. I guess that's it. Dude, I like talking to you. You're cool, man. Yeah, I really appreciate it. We do this all day. That'd be great. But we do have our show to do, so unfortunately. Okay, so Mr. Grant, will you please tell everybody once again where to find you? Sell us something if you got something, and then we'll get into our portion of the show.
Cool. So Real Men Fail, available on every podcast platform there is. If you like websites, you could visit realmenfail.org. If you want to know more about me, energy coaching. I do Akashic record readings. I have clients all around the world. I also do these really weird person activations that awaken your energy and give you life purpose. TheAndyGrant.com. Don't settle for just any Andy Grant. It's TheAndyGrant.com.
Oh, I love that. We should have been some nobodies. That's
some nobodies.
Don't just settle for any some nobodies. Go for the some nobodies. Oh, that's so cool. Andy, awesome. Thank you so much for answering our questions. We really appreciate you taking the time. So IBM TV, thank you very much for having us on. We appreciate it. We have a couple people we want to thank before we get into the meat of this thing. Number one, Scott Curtis. If you're into podcasts, especially interview styles, other than Andy Grant, which is all about real men feeling, you can go to Scott Curtis's show called Behind the Bits. It's awesome. He doesn't get into comedy. He gets into what's behind the comedy, a little bit of feeling of what the comedians are going through. Friends on the East Coast, Sarah Tkachuk, Tanya Sheck. If you are into podcasts and you want to read the words instead of just hearing them, you can find them on Listener app. If you're on Instagram, it's at The Greatest Podcast App. Also, check out Scene Snobs. Those guys are cool and they're geeks and they do a bunch of weird movie stuff, which we're super into. Dylan.
Zach.
We got to do this.
We do. We got some stuff in the stuff in the barrel.
That's true. Last week, we pitched a couple ideas, one of which I think we're going to hang on to for a sec and not bring back up. We got to kind of work on that one a little bit.
Situation is settled a little bit.
Yeah. So, Dylan, do you want to pitch one or do you want me to go first?
I went first last time and I won, so I'm going to give you the chance this time.
All right, perfect. Okay, Andy Grant, the story that I want to go down, I had this weird idea about robots. We do a lot of shows about robots for some reason. And I had this idea of you follow these robots that are doing for some reason in this scenario, humans give robots a 9-to-5 job just to make them feel like they're not slaves. So there's this place that robots kind of hang out. And one day, a human goes in there and just throws everything off. So it's a little bit of a future story. Robots have their own spaces and a human goes into there and maybe a murder happens or something. So I like the idea of a 9-to-5, almost like a place that robots go after their work shift is over. And I kind of wanted to explore that because I think there's something interesting in there. I don't really know how to sum that up fast though, but Dylan
Robot Diner Mystery?
Yeah, a robot diner mystery. Yeah, that's fine. I'll do that. Right.
Yeah. It sounds like an episode of The Office with robots to me.
Kind of, yeah.
That's not bad, actually. We'll do that idea on a different episode. All right, let's see.
Okay, Dylan. What do you think can possibly beat this very loose idea of robots hanging out in a diner?
Well, if history is anything to go by, I don't know. But the idea I came with, so it was mostly just a scene that I thought would be really well, kind of fun to base something on. Guy wakes up. He's in the wilderness. Maybe it's maybe a giant enclosed wilderness space or something. He's wandering around. And he finds signs that someone else was there, discarded items or something like that. And he comes across a body and he flips it over and it's himself. And it turns out he's a clone and he's going to get hunted down by a more advanced clone of himself later on. So it's him evading a more advanced clone version of himself for whatever reason.
Oh, when you said that he finds his own body, I thought he was in a clone dump or something.
Could be.
Which sounds cool too. Okay, all right. So we're gonna find. We're gonna call this one currently.
Clone Wars. Wait.
Oh God.
No.
I think that's taken.
That's a Star Trek thing, isn't it?
Dude, half our friends are gonna hate us. Stop doing that.
Oh, sorry. Farscape. That's it.
Yeah, Nearscape. Okay, so. Okay, Mr. Andy Grant, the last question we're going to pose to you for, obviously, until a little bit, until we figure this out, is what story would you like us to work on, with your help, hopefully? Robot Diner Mystery, or what Dylan accidentally called Clone Wars, which is about a clone who wakes up and then finds another version of him, and then I guess a mystery ensues, or suspense, something.
You know what? That just the notion of that scene and landing in the middle of the story. So it's kind of the clone dumpster there that is intriguing to me.
Yeah. No, I agree. Once he said that, I was like, that beats mine completely. That was way better. All right, cool. So
they can still be robots. It's all right.
If it's cloning, they probably have robots.
Yes.
Yeah, there might be. We try to work robots into most of our stories.
Okay,
so what we're going to do is we're going to work on whatever this is going to turn out to be, which so far just started out as a scene, which is there is a person who wakes up in the wilderness, finds a body or bodies, turns one of them over and realizes that it is a cloned version of himself. And I guess now he has to wonder if they are discarded or if there's a clone hunter out there or something. Yeah. All right, cool. Let's get into this. All right, so Dylan, You saw this scene, right? And I would assume that this scene, it feels like a movie scene. I don't know if this seems like it would start a series or something like that. Am I right?
Probably a single shot story of some length, yeah, not a series.
Yeah, all right, cool. So let's work on a just one solo timeline for right now and see where this evolves itself.
HBO will adapt a sequel series in 25 years.
Yeah. Andy Grant, where do you think is a cool setting for this clone to wake up?
When Dylan was sharing this vision, it sounded like a forest to me. So I like this, wild, overrun kind of nature, not an industrial setting.
Cool.
Maybe like a nature preserve for this specific reason. And you have that moment where you like the Truman Show moment where he bumps up against the wall and it opens it up and it's just like the cyberpunk dystopia outside.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's cool. I'm into that. Okay, so the whatever this is going to be is going to start off with this person waking up, right? Just waking up outside. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. I have a general distaste for starting stories off by a character waking up.
I was going to say that.
It's creative writing 101, but if the rest of the story is out there enough, I think you can justify it. I think we'll be okay in this situation. I think it makes sense on this one.
So, Andy Grant, you're a writer.
Unless you want him to just start by just running from something.
Well, I like the discovery. I think the discovery of yourself is very interesting, and I think that's a very powerful way to start a story. So I would like to start there if that's cool with you. Whether they're waking up in a pile of themselves, or it maybe just starts with like footsteps through the wilderness and then finding like a pile of bodies. I'm not really sure. But Andy, one thing that we go through a lot is tropes. And obviously tropes are storytelling devices that have been used over and over again, sometimes good, sometimes very, very poor. How do you feel when writing about using certain tropes?
I let myself use them all to get the story out, to get the flow, and then I go back like, all right, what cliche do I have to twist? So I let the story unfold because, I find that as a storyteller, I'm definitely influenced by every story I've ever heard. Mm-hmm. So I don't try to cut myself off mid trying to regurgitate some sort of expression of creativity. So all tropes are fine until the final product. Then I go back like, is that too on the nose? Is that just too silly, etc.
Yeah, cool. That's perfect because that's kind of what we do. We throw them all in there and go, we should probably pull that one out. Like people need to stop looking in mirrors.
Interesting. Yeah.
So how do you feel about starting this story off with the clone character waking up?
I suppose it's cool having him wake up. I'm curious if we can twist it in some way where where this isn't the first guy we follow, or this isn't the final one we follow. Like this one meets his end somehow, and then we see another one wake up, and that one meets its end, and then the third one is the one that we actually follow through to the end of the story. And that way, you're like, is this reincarnation? Is this a time loop? Are they clones? And then you confirm it's clones.
Okay, so what if we do a thing where the story starts in the wilderness and our person, I hate saying that like this person like has memory loss, but they're out there for some reason, and I don't know if we should know that. So whatever. They start off and they're walking through the woods and they're tracking somebody, and they're kind of walking this person around and they're walking through woods or whatever, and that's when we get a glimpse that the person they're tracking is themselves. How do you think about that?
Might be a little early if it's that first scene.
But then I was thinking, so we have our first clone, right? And they're tracking somebody behind trees, which is clone number 2. Now they're following this person, and now just going by what you just said, and I'm trying to work that in. They follow and they get to like a campfire where there is a couple of the clones just sitting around and trying to understand what's happening. And then that's when maybe somebody comes in and starts like plucking these people off. No?
That almost feels like what should be the end of the first act, where we have the reveal, and then it's like not only are we all clones, but someone is hunting us all down.
Perfect. I'm glad you brought up act, because that leads me to another question for Mr. Andy Grant. When writing, Andy, do you find that you fall into a 3-arc structure normally, or do you let the story kind of dictate what the storytelling techniques are?
I let the story dictate, but again, most of the time there is the 3-arc, and to try to prove I have something valid, I look for those breaks and the cliffhangers and the transitions. Cool. But when I'm just like free flowing something, yeah, I don't know if my whole arc actually that just makes up act 1, or I have a 3-part series here,
Nice. Okay, so let's just use a 3 arc for structure purposes, and let's say that the reveal of the multiple clones at a campsite is that cool? Is that fun?
It works for me if like previous iterations of these clones have banded together and you can see them in various kind of states of production, whatever term you would use for that.
Yeah.
So you have one that was a little primitive and they are just completely bald because it didn't do the hair, or one that had some tampering done with it, so they have like different eye color or something like that. Cool. Just to show that it's like a progressive process.
Okay, so at some point we need to go over who's making the clones and why the clones are out there. Do you think that these clones are hiding from something, or are they in a community, just an autonomous community in the woods?
I think they're probably hiding, but they've banded together to make it easier.
Okay, cool. So I'm assuming that at some point we're going to get some kind of trauma against the camp of clone camp, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't know who this figure is right away. And I guess we're going to assume, the audience is going to assume that whoever's doing all the trauma to these clones, also clone camp's not bad.
It's not bad. It's like Clone High.
Well, it's definitely better than Clone Wars. Although I'm coming back around to that. Okay. Where do you think we should go to after this?
Well, I like the idea that we have the initial impression that it's a bunch of clones lost in the woods, and then the next expansion of the world is that they're being hunted. And then I think the expansion towards the end is that this entire place is enclosed and structured in such a way that it was always like this, or something like, you know what I mean? It's like we throw a whole bunch of versions of one guy in there, and whichever one comes out is the one that we send on whatever ambiguously shady mission this organization is running.
That's so cool. Like this is beta testing.
Yeah, I like that.
All these for sure. All right,
it's a stress test of a bunch of clones.
I also had a weird idea that if the main person hunting is themselves, so like they make a bunch of versions of them because they're the ultimate predator. So who else would they fight but themselves? I don't know if that's where we're going to go, but just lock that back there for right now.
Yeah, could be.
Okay. So the first arc really is finding the first clone, following that clone, and realizing that there is a clone camp. Right. That's kind of the first third, right?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. And then closely after that is when we realize that there is the information given that there is a hunt for some reason. That whenever somebody goes out of the camp, they're going to die. Something.
Something like that. Or the camp constantly moves in order to avoid detection.
All right. Do you think that the second arc should be reveal of bad guy or banding of clones to start an onslaught or something?
I really like the idea that you don't initially think they're being hunted, and then at some point early in the second act, the hunter shows up and gets rid of like the majority of the people he meets, and then the rest of it is them kind of like trying to reverse it back on him, and then that ends when they finally do get one over on him, and then it expands to like I think the closest kind of thematic idea I can think of is the end of Cabin in the Woods, when they go into the tunnels, and you're like, oh, this entire thing is constructed. And I think that's probably the next step beyond just, not only are you being hunted, the hunter is also part of whatever system is in charge is doing this.
All right, cool. So the hunter is also a discarded clone then, not the person who's making the clones.
Either a discarded one or the one actively being like tested. Like, all right, in order to be successful, you have to go inside this wilderness enclosure and hunt down your previous selves. And then,
Cool. Okay, Andy, what of this seems interesting for you with this story that we should start going into?
So one thing that's popping in my mind is, what if this all is done like each day? So the elders in the clone camp are really just hours older than other people. But from their conversation, you don't realize that. We think people have been there forever. And then, one of the reveals is that this happens every day. Just every few minutes, someone keeps landing. And, the reveal is maybe, someone realizes someone's different because it's the clone in the best shape bursts through or he shows up and actually kills one too. They all another one of us. Here's another one of us. Oh, this guy's killing us. Why? And it's that can launch a new direction. But
cool.
One of my favorite sci-fi reveals is the idea that this is not just a recent or presently occurring event, but it has been going on for a long time. I really like that idea. And there's some fun where it's maybe they could open a door and there's just a vat of them or something like that. And you see the facility behind the cloning. I don't know how dark we want to get with this, but we've got some options for some really striking imagery in this.
Yeah, I do like the idea of them hanging on to maybe clone body parts for when the ones come back wounded and they go, we have an arm, just go get it out of there,
Very early ones are actually androids.
Yeah. Do you want to work on the character of the clone or do you want to continue with the storyline?
I think we have a good kind of framework right now, at least for where we are in the show. Let's see if we can't get some character stuff done out.
Okay, cool. So
now, I have one question that I think I need to pose. Are the only characters in this going to be the clones? Are we going to do that? Or are we going to have all the other characters appear as voice only or on a monitor or something?
So I like the idea of what Andy was saying and also how you worked it into the story, that this is all going on. It's been going on for a long time. But I also like the idea that the people that are doing this have no idea. They think that the clone body is literally garbage and they just throw it out and then go back to their lives. And then this other thing, this whole other universe is going on outside and nobody really knows. And they're just these clones are dealing with a weird civil war kind of.
What if, I don't know if this is going too far, but what if there's a reveal that it's 10,000 years in the future, everybody outside is dead and this entire process has become automated without any human intervention?
Oh, just make it a person dropping it off.
They break out and it turns out it's just a completely automated cloning facility and outside the world is completely wrecked and there's nobody left.
Oh, that's cool.
And then we do a 50 years later and the clones have completely repopulated with everybody.
So it's Go ahead.
It feels like it's the beta test notion to the big extreme, and no one ever shut off that automated machine, and they just keep trying to make the best version. Right?
I don't know if that's too far out there for what we're trying to do here, but
no, I like that.
That's the sort of end scene I would kind of, I guess not anticipate, but obviously it's the one that I think is kind of fun for this idea.
Yeah. No, I love open-ended things that you can keep imagining, keep going in, as opposed to just and here's the good guy, everything's over.
Yeah, that's boring. That's boring. We try to stay away from that at all possible. All right, so now this thing is called beta test, and I think that's actually very cool. All right, so Dylan, so we know what's going to happen to the first third of the story, whatever this is going to be. What do you think the next third entail? What actually is the second arc or the coming down? Is it the reveal that there is something else going on out there? Is it a reveal that one of the clones is hunting them? What do you think?
Which reveal is this at the end of Act 2?
This will be the end of Act 2.
I figured that's when they break through the wall and they see that there's a facility behind it, and maybe that's them being we have to get to the people who run this, and then it's just a run through this hellish automated clone factory. And then the end of the third act is the reveal that it's actually been going on for 1,000 years.
Cool.
Yeah, there's no bad guy to find. It's just machinery still running.
Yeah,
solar powered forever.
Yeah, and then no matter what you do, no matter what they do, it's just going to just continue. Tomorrow, there's another clone that's going to drop off, and if they kill a hunter, one's going to become a hunter just to get rid of them. Whatever. Cool.
Do we go Snowpiercer where the happy ending is to destroy the status quo and let nature come back? Where they blow up the factory somehow? Spoilers for Snowpiercer, which came out 15 years ago.
They did not blow up a factory in Snowpiercer, Dylan.
No, I'm speaking figuratively.
That's all.
They just departed a train. That was it.
That train was kind of a person factory. Let's be real here.
It's definitely a roach bar factory.
Mm-hmm. People eat bugs all the time. Whatever.
That's true. Okay, so this clone. What does this clone look like? What are they a copy of something? Are they a copy of like a something from now and then 1,000 years from now? Like it doesn't matter. Like are they a Tom Cruise ripoff, or are they like a pinnacle person made in a factory, or is it just Ewan McGregor?
Part of me is thinking there's some. It depends on how tongue in cheek we want to go with it, because we could make it a clone of some like celebrity, and they wake up every time and think they're a celebrity. But I think that's too.
Yeah, I don't like that.
No, it's too kind of farcical, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to backpedal the story of why this clone is being made to begin with. So obviously there's. What would happen?
Maybe we find out. What if we see this human pictures at the end and just the employee of the month? He was just like the best Homer Simpson of this factory or something.
Our pictures on the wall here. It says employee of the month. Something like that. That's
So that
was like the last person to win being cloned as a prize.
Their prize for most valuable employee was to be the feature of whatever genetics experiment they were doing.
And at that moment is when the world stopped and they just kept making the same employee for a month. It was just like a nobody.
That's not bad.
That's actually really cool. All right, so there's an employee of the month, and that's the big reveal at the end. That's funny.
And casting, like I always think casting-wise too, this lets you cast anybody. Whoever says yes to this project, great.
Yeah, that's true. Because they're like, oh, remember him when he was them whenever they were an actor in this? Okay, cool. So they probably so there's the employee of the month. They have no real skills, right?
Maybe the clones can be like specifically programmed with a certain skill set. I don't know how far out there we want to go, but like you have the clone that's specified for like construction work and he's bigger. You have the clone that's specialized for like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
I do. I don't know if there should be different writing if it's an automated system. So I think they should all be pretty much identical.
But
especially
maybe they don't realize until you do something, you know you're good at it. And if this is they're all in this new situation. So I'm great. He's the campfire guy, and he's the how to hunt food that we don't eat, or whatever it is. They discover they are skilled, but they don't know it because they're programmed. They should be good at stuff.
Yeah, that's 23. His genetic code is predisposed to a wilderness survival, so we keep him around.
I like that. Like, there's not even a disposition. It's just when like the new guy gets to camp, and they're like, "So what are you good at?" And he's like, I don't know. What do you guys do? And he's like, I don't know. This guy carries stuff. Like, this guy is a surgeon, I guess. So, all right. So there's like there's a thought of like they could be different, but they're actually not. They're all that makes the reveal cooler at the end when it's like you guys are just all this guy, this employee of the month guy. Okay, what's next, Dylan?
Let's see. I think we should also flesh out just kind of what the frame around the story is, like the world around it. So that way we can, when we do a little bit more like targeted story stuff, we kind of know where to come from.
Yeah.
So like which company it was, what year-ish, like, what kind of tech level it was when they were doing this, potentially where in the world it was. But if it's far enough in the future, we can kind of do whatever we want with it.
So I like the wilderness. So I think maybe setting it in Colorado makes the most sense.
Sure.
There is like a tech bubble here, and then if we could use that. And let's say that where they are is the grounds of the facility that they use for like testing and training outside, because they also maybe used to make military weapons. So they would have like open space.
The Roosevelt National Forest, we could just say in the future they completely domed it off.
Love that.
So they're running around in the Rockies.
All right. So in Roosevelt, and I guess a future of who the president's going to be is probably not donating as much money to the Park Foundation, right? Which
or they're donating so much that they can afford to just block the entire thing off, or they just sell it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. They lease part of it. All right. So in Roosevelt,
the Amazon National Forest.
Of North America.
Naming rights everywhere.
Zach, if we want to tie this into other works we have, the parent company could be Advanced Solitude Solutions, and they're cloning people.
I love that. That's in our universe.
Angel
what year is that set in?
2095?
29-ish.
So we set this in like 2300 or something.
All right. So 2300 roughly is the year. which means that these things have been going on for about 300 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. 300 years of cloning drop-offs. Okay, which means, all right, so we're 2300, and I guess, what, humans? Humans are done? Or no?
I don't think we need to confirm or deny whether humans are still alive. I just think that when they break out of the facility, the world that they can see, the rest of like surrounding Colorado, you see the Denver skyline in the distance, but it's got that post-apocalyptic like steel beam and no window view to
just
it.
that one random pillar of smoke.
That one random building with the little curved like roof.
Yeah.
You know which one I mean.
Oh, I do. Okay, so the guy wakes up in the woods, finds another person that looks just like him. He follows that person, and he goes to a camp of the same people. They question him about what his specialties are, and that's a weird scene right there. And that's when we get the information shortly after that there is a sort of a hunt going on, and that somebody is killing these people, and I guess that's what we're going to let the audience know. Or I guess that's what we're going to make the audience feel is the storyline. Somebody's creating these things just to kill, right? I guess.
Yeah, and we could potentially have that first act be him like he just thinks he's in the woods, and then he starts running into weird like hyper vicious animals or something like that. Like maybe this entire place is kind of rigged to test survival of some sort.
Sure.
I'm just trying to think of what we can do before he gets to meet the clones, before that reveal.
So it's almost like a Hunger Games kind of ground that they are just plopped into?
I suppose so.
Yeah.
Automated, though, so it's got, yeah.
Well, I feel like they just kind of, like a door opens in a factory, and they kind of come out of the door. They're clones. They don't know what's going on, why they're made, and there's just a door to the outside. And they walk outside, and then that's when they stumble upon all this. So they come across maybe some of their own bodies, and they're like, what is going on? And that's when like all this picks up, and then they follow one into the woods, and then the camp picks up. That's right? That's accurate?
I kind of like the idea that it starts with them in the wilderness, or they wake up in like a shack or something, and that maybe that shack has a maintenance hatch underneath it, and they have to go back to it's like we have to go back to where it started, and they go there and they find the maintenance access hatch.
Yeah. So
And
so they're made and then put into that hatch?
I figured, yeah, they probably have some sort of like, they get cloned and then does a little like clone growth thing, and then they're shot out of a pod and just kind of placed on a bed in like a mountain shack, and that mountain shack has maintenance access.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're being booted up for the first time, and it takes a while. Yeah. Like you put them out there, and it takes a while for them to turn on, and they don't have any sort of memory unless you choose to program one, right?
Okay, so the start of this movie or whatever is a person waking up in a shack, walking outside, seeing body parts or something, and then finding one of themselves. That's a start. I mean, I'm cool with that. I like that.
Was it like tripping over, like finding himself dead? Was that
right?
That's the hook, right?
I think he follows like a blood trail of some sort, and then like 15 minutes or so, he finds his own body, and that's when you're like, oh, something weird's happening. Yeah. He gets attacked by like a swarm of bees or dogs that spit bees or something like that, and he runs and he survives for a little bit, and then he sees like a smoke signal up ahead or something like that, so he follows it, and it's a bunch of him around the campfire, and they're like, oh, another one. Well, my name, I go by 15. This is 35. Do you have a number? And he's like, what do you mean? Maybe the clones have some sort of like watermark at a spot they can't see or something. And Zach's not into it.
Or is it just what number of person showed up and gathered? Like the first guy was 1, then it's 2, and so 30. If it's 35, he's the 35th. If that's what you're at. Yeah,
like when he gets there, somebody sees him and they go, "Oh, there's another one," and they put like a mark on a tree, and they go, "Looks like you're number 35."
One of them like tattoos himself as a way to be different or something like that.
Yeah, and they get a number and they go, "Look, we're all the same. We got to keep ourselves apart here." That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, what's next?
I think in Act 2, they are planning to escape, and then they slowly get picked off by, you're not sure who, but eventually we reveal pretty soon in that it is another clone. And I think we reveal that pretty soon after, so we don't waste people's time.
All right, so the first act ends with the reveal of the clone camp. Shortly after that, we get the info of the hunter. And then the story is going to shift into these clones wanting to escape, thinking they're being imprisoned. So they go to like an escape style story. And then that's when like the hunter clips off a couple of those. That turns into the reveal that the hunter is also a clone, which is cool. Because they're like, why are you doing this if we're stuck here? And then the clone's like, we're not stuck here. Go, oh,
what if the hunter clone doesn't know he's a clone, so he thinks he's the hero, and it's only in the factory that they realize you're fake too, you know?
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Where should we put that reveal? Is that after the second act?
No, I think that's the closer to the end of the second act, because that's when they get him to join, where maybe he thinks he's the original and that his mission is to like hunt down like faulty clones made of him. But then they're like, You're not the original. We've taken out 3 or 4 other versions of you already. Like, there's always someone hunting us down.
Yeah.
Or the employee of the month date is like, hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Something tells them what it is today, and then they realize, no, if you're the original, you'd be 600 years old. And
yeah, you're obviously not the original. There's a photo of somebody else behind you, looks just like you.
Yeah.
And it's old.
Or he finds himself half made. Tomorrow's version of the hunter is there.
Oh yeah. When they're going through the factory in the third act, they definitely have that scene from Aliens 3 where it's a whole bunch of like misassembled ones. It's like, kill me or something like that.
Now, does the hunter have say something wrong with their face, so that way the audience doesn't know that it's a clone, and that would put like the reveal later? Because if the hunter doesn't know he's a clone, that would mean that he never saw himself or can't see himself, I guess.
Yeah, the hunter, he's dressed. He's in some uniform. He's dressed for tactical warfare, while the other guys are just schlubs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The schlubbing clones.
Yeah, your aptitude is that you were meant to be like a soldier or something, or a recon guy. And he goes, what do you mean my aptitude? It's like, well, I mean, we all, when they make us, they tell us what we're good at. He's good at carrying stuff.
Now, do you think there's a time frame from when they wake up until a certain time that they don't really have a memory yet? Like they're still booting up? Because what I was thinking was a reveal could be the hunter's like, I'm not one of you guys. And they're like, yeah, look, you have a tattoo, dude. You're number 15. Like you are one of us. There was people before. Like, do you want to throw that into it? Or is it just a straight reveal of like, take your hood off. You're one of us.
Either or. I mean, I assume they all look alike.
Right. But I was saying like all right, so if we see the hunter at some point and we do see them, we'll know that they're a clone unless they're shrouded. Now, in the story, either that hunter does not know he's a clone and has never seen his face because he has killed other people that all look alike and also look like him. So either he cannot tell he's one of them or just doesn't know, which seems weird.
There's no mirrors in this wilderness, so that's easy enough to not self-identify.
I assumed there were no mirrors makes sense. That's why I had mentioned maybe the hunter's been programmed to think they're the original, and then they somehow show him like the watermark or something like that, where it's like, you've got the weird fingerprints. Like there's the A on your fingertip.
Cool.
And in some sort of battle, the hunter is disrobed by the clone. And they're like, oh, you're another one of us after us. It's like, no, if this has been happening more for them or not.
And he's like, no, you guys are one of me. And like, I don't think so, man. You're not that old. Okay, Dylan, what is most of the third act?
Right now what I have is that they realize that the entire wilderness is an enclosed testing ground, because that's when they break through the barrier and see the behind the scenes stuff. I assume that's when let's see. Because this is the big reveal to everybody that this has been going on for like 300 years.
So yeah, the facility reveal is the beginning of Act 3, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then shortly after,
the shack and go into the maintenance access, and that's where they get into the tunnels.
Yeah, and do they find like nothing in there, or are there people just doing their jobs and they're like, what are all the clones doing here? Or do
No,
they
I
not
think
come across people at all?
I don't think they come across people at all. I think it's fully automated, and they're like, "What is going on?" And it's weird that there's no one else around. And then maybe they find like a skeleton, like a fully decomposed human body, and they're like, "What is this?" And then they find like maybe the cafeteria, and all the food has been left. Like, it's obviously overgrown at this point, and you're like, "Oh." A lot of times pass, and maybe there's like a repeating emergency alert message going on, and then they find a window and they look out and they see the completely overgrown cityscape. And
All right.
then what?
So what are we getting? What do you think is a good ending though? Like, is the ending them getting out of the facility area and walking into like the world? Is the ending like they breach the perimeter so they all just get shut down? Is it like there's like a turret outside that knocks them all down quickly? What kind of ending are we trying to get to? Because so far it seems like we're just getting to that hopeful, hey, we can also live in the world with people or not people, depending on what's out there. Are we doing that like the dystopic walk off the Snowpiercer style, like you said?
Well, that's a good question.
Okay.
Andy, what are you feeling about how this could potentially end up?
Yeah, because we obviously.
I like they're getting to the parking lot and just they're only alive with so radius. So, but yeah. So one of the final ends is the employee of the month. They realize they're all been after this person. It's the factory's been automated. It's been going on forever and ever. So they try to like, well, let's see what we can do on our own, and they'll just shut down.
They have just a off switch by proximity.
Yeah, well, they're powered by some futuristic thing that the core is only there. The cafeteria is powering everybody, and you go too many feet away.
So what if the clones were all designed after this one employee of the month because he is the ideal customer service tech, and all these people were designed to just be customer service. They have to live on this grounds. They only work customer service, and if they ever come across the grounds, they die, which is why some of them think there was a hunter on the other side of the barrier, because when they do bust through the barrier, they drop dead and they go, oh my God, there's a hunter out there too. So they don't really cross until they learn that their sole purpose really was just to answer the phone to deal with some customer service thing for this weapons tech.
That makes dialogue so fun.
Yeah.
Everything. If you could look back and make that dialogue fit that task, that's awesome.
They're the remnants of an old potential like society, and there are rumors that if you go to the outside, the hunter gets you, and now the hunter's inside, and so they then have the option of like walking out and dying on their own terms or staying inside. But then we need to justify why they haven't established their like a society that kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but they have many, many times, and they keep leaving and dying. And, they form a tiny society, decides like, we should just get out of here. And then they cross the barrier and they all just die.
Right, they make the same decision every day because they're all clones.
They're the same person.
They walk outside and there's a whole bunch of like decommissioned ones at the proximity.
Yeah.
And they walk up to them to see what's wrong, and they become them.
Yeah, and they're like, I guess the hunter is not here anymore, so let's go. And then and they go, the hunter's still here.
What if the hunter is the product they all support?
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
So what?
Prove that or make that work.
I like this stuff.
They were designed to be like prey, just easily produced and disposable clones.
Yeah,
so they know how to beat him because they know how to support him, and that's how they can survive somewhat and win him over to help them. But because that's their job, to support whatever his job is supposed to be.
And that's also why they're so scared of him, because they've been selling this product for so long to go, no, this is like the ultimate weapon, guys. We cannot fight with this thing, because they've just been programmed that this is the ultimate weapon they've been trying to sell. Okay, I think this is actually getting into a really cool story. So I like the fact that they are all customer service clones built to handle just a mundane phone thing or just basic secretarial duties. Such as maybe this company has robots that need IT help, and they would have these clones that answer these phone calls for the IT help or whatever. And then the world falls apart, and then these things still get made one a day, because when the company broke down, that was their trajectory. We would need one employee a day because of how we're growing.
Is it too dark to say that they might be like organ surrogates, and that's why the hunter's going after them?
I mean, I think that's a reason the hunter could be taking him. Like, say the hunter's been there for hundreds of years, and he keeps like just grabbing new organs and replacing himself or something. That could be cool and weird. Why he's so deformed looking? Because he's been there for 200 years. I kind of like that idea too. If you want, we could throw that into here.
I like the idea that these clones were produced to support and then over the years that programming has kind of become corrupted to result in, well, we support this thing by being its prey. And then it turns out the thing is just another one of them. I like that. I don't think we need to go the full route of them being like, organ producers, but...
All right, cool. Do you want to run through the story real fast, like a quick run through, just see like where how this is feeling, how's it looking?
So we start with a guy waking up in like a mountain cabin, doesn't know where he is, but he sees signs of habitation, or at least recent visiting, like, maybe something's ruffled or the door's partially open. There's marks in the dust or something, or there's no dust, something like that. He follows the signs, finds a blood trail or like a spattering of things. He avoids the dangers, which seem, at least from our point of view, pretty excessive for what looks to be a pretty standard forest. And then eventually he starts finding signs of violence and eventually stumbles upon a clone of himself, or a body that looks like him, and we're freaked out. He follows more signs and is dealing with like some sort of pursuit when he finds a group of people who all look like him. These are all clones of him. They all look alike, and they've all been there for a while, and they all know that they are supposed to evade this thing that's hunting them down. They do that and slowly get picked off until a few remain, at which point they fight back against the hunter and actually down him surprisingly easily, despite the reputation this thing has. They unmask it. Turns out it's another clone. They convince him somehow that he is not the original. They convince him that he is another version of them, and that maybe they have an old story that one of them heard from a previous iteration of them, that there is an outside world beyond all this. So they walk. They deal with the death traps in the forest or whatever is around, and eventually maybe they all remember waking up in this cabin. Nah, otherwise they just set up camp around that cabin. So they go back to the cabin for some reason. Maybe they remember that it was seemingly occupied, and they find an access hatch which leads to a maintenance tunnel. They go through an automated factory that's pretty overgrown. They find corpses of the people who live there. It's clear something awful happens. They find the wall plaque with employees of the month, and the most recent one is their face. They probably find some sort of archival footage playing where it's like, hey, if anyone finds this, our names were so-and-so. We get some hint at what ended the world, but we probably don't have to actually explicitly say what happened. Just something went wrong, and it went wrong on such a scale that everything went wrong. They go through the tunnels. They find out their original purpose was probably some sort of customer service support for a more autonomous, kind of more aggressive clone. And then they realize that when they look outside, they see a whole bunch of people in the street, but they're all in a line. They go down, and it's a bunch of deactivated clones at the proximity. And so one of them tests it, deactivates. They can't reactivate them. It's just an automatic kill switch. They're like, well, we have the option of going back and living in that walled-in forest, or we can hang out in the ruined building, or we can go out on our own terms. And then we see them make whatever decision comes logically to them based on how they've been developed in the movie.
Cool. I mean, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
And Andy, where do you think, are there any holes in here? I mean, obviously this is not a fleshed out full story, but are there any plot beats or things that we need to throw into this just to, further along, or to add something extra to it?
What's the video? Like, is this a short? Is this a 2-hour feature? What's your feeling there? Because that...
Now, seeing how all of these linked up, this does feel like a feature film. This does feel about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes long. I can see each one of these arcs being roughly 30 minutes, 35 minutes. So it feels like a feature to me.
Either that or a short limited series.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
We need to fill in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
What feels like the biggest challenge to me right now is who's the lead? Like, especially like who am I rooting for, or is it just twist, 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 and I'm not rooting for anybody?
Yeah. So I guess the start of this story, you follow the clone, then you find the clones. So you're rooting for the clones first against the hunter. Then once the hunter's trying to be a clone, then you're again rooting for the clones, then against the facility. Once you find the facility is the biggest detriment, you are just on the side of the clones, but it's hopeless because there's no place for them to go. So I feel you're always on the side of the clones.
End.
Yep.
But we're associating with clone number 35, whoever came to life that day, who woke up in that shed, that we're somehow going to stick with him and recognize him uniquely from the others somehow.
Well, I don't know if we need to follow one. I think it might be kind of a cool idea, like what Dylan said, that the one you introduce to, they maybe perish pretty quickly. And that way, you never get accustomed to one. One never comes across. It is only the clone, quote, So I think that actually feels kind of cool. That way, there's nobody to root for, because then you're like, what's happening? Like, this company has to go down. And I feel like if you get stuck with a group of just clones, you're going to side with him because that seems sad.
Yeah, and it's neat that the one you think you think the hero of the story, and he's dead. Oh, well, this next hero looks just like him. And, that messes with tropes. Right?
We have a cold open or two where it's someone running through the woods and they get shot with like an arrow or something. It's the same person running through the woods and they slip and break their neck. It's the same person running through the woods and they get attacked by one of the death animals, one of the genetically engineered killer animals. And then the guy wakes up and you're like, is he immortal? Is it a time loop? Are they clones? And then it's confirmed that it's clones.
Yeah.
And my first stuff would be it's dreams, especially if you shoot this in the style that's just dreamy and you're making like, this guy's having this nightmare, then he wakes up. And then you discover, it's not a nightmare too. So because I don't know, the average people watching this, no one says clones unless maybe they do at the camp or at the factory is what finally says it,
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I wouldn't, if I were watching that and it's like cold open, another cold open, and I'm thinking, is this person running through memories? Is this person immortal, like somebody said? I would not think first clone. And then once you see the second one, then you're like, wait, they made, okay. And then once you see all of them together, you're like, oh man, this company sucks. Cool, all right. Dylan, where do we need to plug in some stuff?
I think the second act needs stuff. As I was reading through, that one kind of struck me as pretty bare. Obviously, a lot of that is going to be the struggle between the clone group, which is woefully inadequately equipped to deal with this.
Yeah, I would say
whatever clever way they turn it around on the guy. Yeah,
I would say if we can kind of tell this in 3 stories. Story 1 is a clone learning they're a clone, even though we're going through a couple. Story 2 is clones thinking they're being born for predatory purposes only. And then that ends. And then story 3 is, how does this clone tribe survive?
Yeah.
I think that would be cool, and I think that would help flesh out this second act also. Because if the second act turns into, I think that we're just being born so this thing can hunt us. We don't know what's going on. This thing just takes us out randomly. Sometimes he takes our body parts. We don't know what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. No. And we've got some pretty fun room. We got some room for some pretty fun kind of, clone shenanigans. Have a whole bunch of options for dismemberment or other sort of like filmmaking stuff. Depending on how we want to go with this. Let's see.
So. All right, Andy, now if this were one of our projects, at this point, what we would do with this is put this into a Google Doc and actually just start really working on it. Say that this was a basic outline for a story that you wanted to continue. What would be your process of what you would do next?
Yeah, I would write as many details for each shot in my head, each scene. I'll flesh out everything I've got and see what else comes to me. I do the old, virtual note card thing, move things around, see what flows best. And again, with the 3 distinct things, I like to put a different theme. Like, Act 2 is, maybe it's the classic action adventure, but before it's like it's a mystery, it's a nightmare, what's happening? And 3 is the dystopian future. But, decide you want the down ending, you want the happy ending. Is this is them all working customer support, make a lot of jokes in there? Is there a sitcom middle to this as they gather and commune in the clone forest there? So it's still all sorts of great possibilities right now.
Yeah, I think one of the things in movies that captures me the most creatively is when there's a tonal shift, like Full Metal Jacket or From Dusk Till Dawn. And I don't know if many movies can pull that off successfully, or if movies have done 3 tonal shifts. So that would be kind of interesting. Oh, I guess that one movie. What's that horror movie, Dylan? The Signal. Do you remember
Contact?
that? No, come on.
Oh.
It's got like 3 different directors that do like the first, middle, and end, and like the middle one's a comedy, and the first one's like a weird. All right, anyway, if you want a cool horror movie, check out The Signal. Yeah. Andy Grant, you have honestly been one of my favorite guests we've had on here. Thank you so much. Your passion for what you do, for emotions from a man point of view, I think is so important and really just not respected enough. So I really appreciate that. Your mind as far as creativity is awesome. So, dude, you're in my top 5. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate you coming by.
Yeah.
Cool. I had a blast. This is such a unique experience. I love it.
Cool. And before we kind of wrap up our stuff, do you want to one last time pitch yourself, sell something? Where can people find you if for some reason they just tuned in to catch the last 10 minutes?
Cool. Yep. You can check out my podcast, Real Men Feel, on all podcast platforms, as well as YouTube, Facebook Watch, realmenfeel.org if you're stumped for where to go. I am found at theandygrant.com. I have multiple books. I have newsletters and downloads. Let's see. You can go to theandygrant.com/talk and schedule a talk with me, and maybe we'll make a pitch to do something. No, we probably won't. But we would just talk and see what's up with you. But yeah, that's it. It's all good stuff. I'm everywhere. Be everything.
Right on.
That's so cool, man. I once again I appreciate it. I'm a fan of your podcast.
It's important work you're doing. I think it's not talked about enough yet.
Yeah, I agree.
I wish it wasn't needed.
Yeah,
but it is. So I do it.
I know this is a tough one because usually we have like creatives on. It's like, all right, let's just hop into this movie so we can write this movie. But with you, your topic is just so important and so impactful that I would love to just spend hours talking to you just about that. It is very, very near and dear to my heart. But either way, if anyone's watching, please check out Real Men Talk. Andy Grant is an awesome interviewer. He's an awesome guy, super intelligent, really knows how to make you feel the right way, which is however you want. That's perfect. Feel. That's cool. What we did here, Some Nobodies, me and Dylan and our new friend Andy Grant, we put together a very weird, probably feature movie about clones that are finding out that they are clones. Either way, we do this weekly. We bring on people here, we throw some stupid ideas out there, we try to teach people that your ideas are not dumb, just work on them a little bit. It could be funny, it could be bad, whatever. There's so many different types of content out there. The most important thing is intersectionality. Be smart, be creative, make sure people feel equal and everything else. If you want to help out and do what we do, or if you want to really become a producer or help us make a movie or more of these weird shows or podcasts, you can always go to patreon.com/somenobodies. We need that. We're trying to do that. Thank you to International Broadcast Media Television for having me and my best friend Dylan keep in touch over this weird time and still get to throw ideas out here. I'm not sure why people like listening to us talk about stupid stuff, but I do sincerely appreciate it.
Because we're good at it, Zach. You should own it.
That's true. Well, you're good at it. I just keep talking. So, yeah, it's like throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall. Something's got to stick.
Something sticks.
East Coast friends, Tanya Sheck, Sarah Tkachuk, even the great Stott Curtis with his Behind the Bits podcast. We also have the cool company Listener app. If you're on Instagram, go to the Greatest Podcast app. The best thing about that is if you listen to my show, you know that I mumble or slur. With Listener app, they actually put the words up there so you can read it. And you're like, oh, I guess I missed a joke there. I had no idea Zach said something about Maryland and how terrible it is. Either way, thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Next week. Take it easy. Oh.